This mysterious cave, surrounded by several rumors and speculations, intrigued these two men to explore, despite the fact they had no plan to maneuver the terrain and equally had no equipment to explore this uncharted cave. Hence, turning a regular day of camping into a nightmare when one of them attempted to go through an unknown passage. Stay tuned as we take you through the exploration of young Robert Kennedy as he struggled through the terrain of an unexplored cave, and ultimately, it cost him his life. With little to no preparation and zero caution for the danger of exploring an uncharted cave, Kennedy and his stepbrother Richard set out into a limestone cave in Oklahoma, famously known as the Hermit Cave. The mysteries and suspense-filled stories surrounding this wonder leave people in awe of what might just lie beneath the ground. But eventually, Kennedy was the curious cat that gambled everything and made his way into the cave. It was the 5th of April, 1999, when our 21-year-old curious Kennedy, all the way from Oklahoma, set out for a camping expedition near the limestone enclave of the Hermit Cave. It was situated at the eastern edge of Fort Gibson Lake, which was unsurprisingly located in the center of eastern Oklahoma. He didn't embark on this camping expedition on his own, though. He had the company of his stepbrother, Richard Steeler Jr., alongside the pair's mutual friend, Ben Keegley, who hailed all the way from Tulsa. The three guys had a night that was far from boring as they entertained one another by discussing the folklore and the mystery surrounding the nearby caves in the region, specifically the Hermit Cave, which had uncharted terrains and mysterious pathways. So many stories surrounded it, as some even believed that way underneath the caves would lie some treasures of sorts, or, most likely, gypsum formations. All this ensued as the trio sat beside a campfire and rested underneath the cosmic view of the tiny stars displayed in the sky of Oklahoma. The Hermit Cave was quite familiar among the locals in the area, but was completely clothed in mystery. Kennedy had knowledge of the main entrance of the cave, which many explorers considered boring. Meanwhile, Robert's curiosity revolved around the speculations of hidden passages around the cave that might lead to some hidden wonders. As the trio enjoyed the warmth of each other's company and the beauty of the night sky, it grew very late, and the cold of the night set in, forcing each of them to fall asleep. Upon waking the next morning, they all decided to have a little breakfast before setting out to their respective homes, but Robert had something else in mind. The previous night's discussion had ignited a sense of adventure in him, and now he wanted to take a diversion on the way home to explore one of the limestone caves in the region, specifically the Hermit Cave. His stepbrother Richard agreed to go with him. Ben would have followed them, but he had an early shift at his workplace, so it was just Robert and Richard. Now, proceeding with this expedition would mean breaking a cave exploration rule that clearly states no fewer than 3 people should undertake any cave exploration of any kind, as 3 individuals allow for a safety measure. If one explorer gets stuck, the second one would stay with him, and the third would head out to get help. But in this case, with just 2 participants, they went ahead anyway. As the mouth of the cave was not narrow, they both ventured into the cave with no equipment or safety gadgets of any kind. The only thing they had was a flashlight. The only thing that stopped Ben from going with them was his commitment to work, as he had that early shift. He was the first to give in to the idea of exploration, even as they knew they were violating the cardinal rule of having 2 companions before exploring a cave. They both went anyway. Ben's presence ultimately might have prevented the tragedy that befell 21-year-old Kennedy. After exploring the beautiful rock formation, which was the major attraction of the cave that caught the attention of both Robert and his stepbrother, while they were coming out of the cave, Robert spotted one of the sideways caves that had always been rumored about. He felt an abrupt flow of joy, as a chance to explore that which hadn't been mapped felt like an expedition worth any sort of risk. Had he known, he would have edged out and left the cave while he could. He started his venture into the unknown with a plan in place. He agreed with his brother Richard that he would be the only one to enter the narrow crevice while Richard waited outside the cave for him to come out. At that point, it seemed like a good idea until the unexpected happened. He promised his stepbrother that he would do well to come out as soon as possible and avoid venturing too deep into a cave. He had no idea how it was shaped. As he started moving through the cave, the path saw him move downward into another narrow region, which was measured at about 150 feet, having so many turns and twists that were very tough to navigate. With a path looking like it was created by a millipede, it took maximum skill and strategy to maneuver through this space, starting with sticking your head out in front of you, followed by the shoulders, and then finally your legs. Eventually, Robert got to the first dangerous region in this cave, reported to be a keyhole formation. Many believed that the first mistake Robert made was passing through the keyhole formation, as he didn't consider how he was going to go through that same point, but this time with his legs first, as there was no guarantee he would have enough space to be able to turn and face the other side. It wasn't long before he figured out that the space in front of him was too narrow and had a slimmer shape than he anticipated. So, he began to rethink his journey forward and decided to go back with his legs leading the way. Upon reaching the crucial keyhole zone, he couldn't pass through, as the upper part of his body on the other end prevented it. Seeing that move was a failure, he proceeded to move forward and squeeze through that narrow passage in front. That was the worst decision he had made since embarking on this expedition. He got stuck in that hourglass-shaped region. At that point, all his pushing and pulling were effortless, as gravity also seemed to be working against him. Not long after, Robert began to call out for help to his stepbrother outside. But of course, he was too far inside the cave to be heard by anyone around. It was unrecorded, and cannot be stated how long it took his brother to realize that this wait had been long overdue, as he decided to venture into that opening, following a faint light emitted from Robert's flashlight. Kneeling and screaming his brother's name as he made his way through, screaming back in hope, Robert called out to his brother, responding to the calls he heard, and letting him know that he was trapped and finding it really hard to breathe. In a vast determination to make sure he rescued his brother, Richard hurried blindly into the cave. But soon enough, he realized he couldn't do much without light and assistance. So he let his brother know and made his way out of the cave to converge with assistance and equipment to make the rescue easier. So then, in about an hour, Richard conveyed a large team of rescuers, 10 in number, all experts. They all began to put their heads together in order to devise a means to rescue the trapped Kennedy. Several factors complicated the rescue efforts made by the team to get him out. The main factor was the distance between Robert and the main entrance, which was about 46 meters, causing a really slow process and a lengthy distance to cover to get to him. Additionally, the narrow path was a significant challenge, as they could only proceed one step at a time. The rescuers also had issues with breathing due to the number of people entering the cave, prompting them to use a ventilation system to circulate warm air throughout the passages. They sought out different means to rescue him, but all proved to be either futile or an avenue for a collapse as they attempted to use manual methods to break through the passage. Nonetheless, the clock was ticking, and time was of the essence for dear Robert Kennedy. As exhaustion began to set in, the rescuers started rotating shifts to conserve energy, all in attempts to break the keychain and ultimately rescue Kennedy. With each rescuer taking note of Kennedy's status, they could all see that gradually, his health had begun to deteriorate as signs of suffocation started to appear. With each passing moment, the line between life and death for Robert Kennedy grew thinner. Eventually, the rescuers were able to break through the keyhole structure and made their way to Robert's feet. There was unresponsiveness at first, but then there was a faint pulse as he moved his legs a bit, which instilled hope in the rescuers. Attempts were made to pull him out, but it all turned out futile, as the hourglass structure held him tightly, and the sloppy terrain of that particular region made it impossible to pull him out. They went on to try a pulley system, but it would not hold due to the tenderness of the limestone structure. It was too soft, and all inputs were literally falling off. The next step was to dig around Robert, aiming to break the hourglass trap he was in. The narrowness of the trap made it virtually impossible to even pass a bottle of water to Kennedy, as he was clearly suffocating and gradually losing his life. It seemed to everyone that a Saturn ring of rocks had covered him entirely, making their job more tedious. It took about an hour before the rescuers were able to initiate movement on Kennedy's body. After a 5-hour rescue mission, they managed to dig around his body and proceeded to extract him from within the cave, bringing him to the entrance. Already waiting outside were the paramedics, who were on standby to assess his body and vitals and then transport him to the hospital. Unfortunately, this time around, they found no pulse, as he was already dead. It was believed by the paramedics that Robert died due to suffocation from chest compression and the low regulation of oxygen in that narrow path. The night started as a really interesting one, just chilling with friends, but it turned into an adventurous expedition. Well, it began as an adventurous journey, but ended in tragic tragedy, reminding us of the dangers of the unknown in this world. This story is a heartbreaking reminder of the risks of uncharted exploration. If you're ever tempted to explore places like this, remember the importance of preparation, safety, and following the rules. It's not just about adventure, it's about coming back safely. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more gripping tales, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Let us know in the comments what other stories you'd like us to cover next. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there.